Challenge presented by Continental inside of Littlejohn Coliseum. This is the ACC on ESPN. And a pair of 5-1 teams getting set to tangle as Nebraska's in town to battle the Clemson Tigers. Great to have you with us, as always. Corey Alexander, Roy Philpott on hand, and a great matchup tonight, a pair of 5-1 clubs, and we're talking about two of the best backcourts in both of these conferences.
And when you think about these two backcourts, 3 of the 4 members are actually fifth years, so you've got a lot of experience in the two backcourts. But for Nebraska, James Palmer, Glenn Watson coming in together, averaging 32.5 points per game, not to be outdone by Marquise Reed and Shelton Mitchell, averaging 34.5 points per game, but not just the scoring. Both these backcourts do so much for their teams, and they have a lot to prove this season.
Always a fun time of year, kicking off the ACC Big Ten Challenge. First game headed your way right now. Crowd still filing in at Littlejohn. And the opening tap, controlled by the Tigers, a Sweet 16 program a year ago. And these two teams meeting for the second time in 3 seasons. The Huskers were here 2 years ago. As we take a look at tonight's starting lineups presented by Geico, Reed and Mitchell, the two transfers, have done a lot of damage in their Clemson career, as has Eli Thomas for the first points of the night.
And you see immediately Brad Brownell electing to go inside to Thomas. They want to see if they can put some pressure on Roby, because Roby's so important. And you see, of course, Tim Miles going right back at him. Roby unable to finish. But both these coaches with the emphasis on getting the ball inside the paint.
3 Cornhuskers averaging over 14 per. Thomas with the left hand and a strong finish at the rack.
You know, and we have to mention that Eli Thomas had his first full week of practice this week after coming back from a sprained ankle and also having the flu early in the year. Brad Brownell was impressed with him during this week of practice, felt like he would have a positive effect on this game tonight. He's got off to a great start.
Lone loss for Nebraska against Texas Tech, a program that's now ranked in the top 25. You mentioned Roby off the mark from distance, and Clemson controls.
You know, but one thing with Roby's not really a 5. He plays the 5 position for Nebraska, but he's not the prototypical 5-man, more of a 4. Actually came to Nebraska as a wing player, so really still learning on the fly.
Mir Sims off the mark. Thomas trying to battle Roby on the boards, and a scrum on the deck.
Oh, we got a little extracurriculars already in this one.
Roby and Thomas having some pleasantries exchanged.
Yeah, I believe we're going to have a technical foul on that one. You did see a kick from Eli Thomas early. You see in the scrum and battling for the basketball, but once the whistle is blown, you will see, you see Roby throw Thomas's foot off first. And then you see the kick from Thomas. So you see immediately Roby takes the foot of Thomas, throws it to the ground, and then Thomas retaliates with the kick. So going to be interesting to see, of course, with the great crew that we have here tonight. When you talk about Mike Eves, Jamie Luckey, and, of course, Roger Ayers, you got a great crew. But to be able to, at this point of the game, a minute and a half in, to be already looking at this, that shows you how important this game is to both these teams.
Well, it's so important in terms of strength of schedule. Come March, you always want to have a quality non-conference win on the resume, and these two teams certainly capable of that in other matchups before we get to January. It always starts, though, you saw how Thomas had his foot right in the face of Roby there for that extra split second, and Roby interpreted that as disrespect.
Well, and when you get an opportunity to see it, and, of course, good basketball, both guys getting on the floor, going after the basketball, and so Thomas's foot comes up. Now, after the whistle was blown, you immediately see Roby throw the foot off, and then Thomas retaliate with the kick. So that's where the problem comes in. Honestly, it's going to be very interesting to see what the officials decide. Is there a double technical? Both guys get penalized for this one, and we play on. But we'll put a foul on each one of them, which both these guys are very invaluable to their team and need to stay out of foul trouble, especially here in the first half.
You're pretty good at play-by-play. I like that. I like how you illustrated all of that right there.
Well, you know, I've been hanging out with you. You know, I got a few guys that taught me a couple things about this business.
So it sounds like a double technical will be the call. Roger Ayers explaining to the scores table.
And I think that's fair. I think that's the route to go. I mean, it's hard to honestly say who started it. So the double technical route, in my opinion, is the best route to go. And you keep both guys, and they know. But the tone of this game has now been set. So therefore, the officials are not going to allow this game to get out of hand. With the double technicals being assessed early, it's going to set the tone for everyone else in this one. But I think we're going to have a competitive game here tonight.
We expect it to be competitive. We expect it to be physical, and thus far it's been both of those things. So Eli Thomas, technical foul. Isaiah Roby, technical foul as well. And an interesting start for Brad Brownell's team. Tim Miles, the head coach at Nebraska. As you see, Brad Brownell, recent contract extension through 2024. And here comes Nebraska, 90 seconds in, still in search of its first points.
Be interesting to see what that little skirmish right there, how Nebraska responds to that.
Back to work offensively. Copeland Jr. at the free throw line was fouled. Tim Miles, head coach for the Huskers, 7th season. He's been to the tournament once. Important year for Coach Miles as this team has some talent. Mentioned it earlier, 3 players averaging over 14 points per game with experience in the backcourt. And they're an outstanding defensive team as Copeland, 66% at the line, will get one more.
And we talked about the transfers. Isaac Copeland, another transfer who actually started 33 games his sophomore year at Georgetown. A top 15 recruit coming out nationally out of Raleigh, North Carolina, Booster Academy. But he has been special this year and had a breakout year last year for Nebraska, one of the reasons why they won 13 Big Ten games.
And a team that was very close to reaching the big dance.
Many may consider to have been stubbed.
But you didn't.
No. I mean, their non-conference schedule, in my opinion, really kept them out of the NCAA tournament, and the Big Ten was down a bit last year. But I think that, fortunately, they've got Palmer back, Copeland back, which allows them an opportunity to be able to do some damage again and see if they can get into the NCAA tournament and get a win. One of the only Power 5 conference school that has never had a win in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, you're in midseason form already. I love it. After the basket by Mitchell, Huskers back to work as you take a look at the big 3. Open look, Copeland off the mark. You have experience in the backcourt, you have a chance. Off the glass, and Mitchell back-to-back buckets, and the Tigers lead at 8-2.
And experience is exactly what Brad Brownell has. You see Shelton Mitchell getting out in transition, but more importantly, Marquise Reed averaging 6 rebounds a game. And for a guard, that's a lot of rebounds, and that's one of the areas where Brad Brownell has always taught in this program and loves to see his guards get back in and rebound the basketball.
Here's Watson with his elite speed. Wild shot, gets it to go, 8-4. That was one of Brad Brownell's big concerns for tonight. Watson in traffic, running this offense. His speed, very difficult to simulate.
Well, and rightfully so. 2 years ago, we mentioned the game where Nebraska came here and lost by 2 to Clemson. Watson scored 20 points and had 6 rebounds in that game, so Clemson very aware of how dangerous he can be.
Thomas off the mark from the baseline. And Palmer, there you see the scoring ability, and one.
And that's, in my opinion, the difference maker in this game and will be the difference maker for Nebraska all season long. James Palmer, who played his first 2 years at Miami, then transferred to Nebraska, was first team All Big Ten a year ago. But his ability to handle the basketball and get to the free throw line, this will be his 45th free throw on the season. And so he's a guy that spends a lot of time at the line, and he comes away with makes on most of them, not all.
0 for 1 there. He does average 9 free throw attempts per contest coming into tonight. And a competitive start here in upstate South Carolina. It's 8-6. High ball screen for Reed, who launches, and that shot partially rejected by Palmer. And then Reed promptly fouls him. No substitutions now for both sides. Porkar checking in as Roby goes to the bench. Also in for Clemson, John Newman, as Reed has his seat with Brad Brownell.
And John Newman, the freshman, coming in at a crucial point for Brad Brownell, and a very good defender. And one of the areas where Brad Brownell said they would use John Newman a lot in this game, especially give him opportunities to guard Watson in stretches where, of course, he can rest Reed and Mitchell, and Newman can give them great defensive stops.
Screen for Copeland. 4 minutes in here in Clemson. The ACC Big Ten Challenge underway. This is game number 1. From the baseline, Watson Jr. too strong. Offensive rebound. Copeland up with it and connects to tie us up at 8.
And you see Isaac Copeland using that special athletic ability and getting it done on the offensive glass, but that's a foul there. Where Watson, you've got to stay away from those. He's way too important to his team to pick up ticky-tack fouls 94 feet from the basket, but we've got ourselves a ball game tied at 8-8.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by Continental Tire, for what you do, and in part by Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, the part of parenting that's impossible to mess up.
Well, the ACC Big Ten Challenge tipping off tonight here in Clemson. As soon as we're done, we'll send you up to Chestnut Hill for BC and Minnesota. And Corey, there's a point guard up there that you really, really like.
In my opinion, Kai Bowman is the best NBA point guard prospect in the ACC, and I think BC is an NCAA tournament team. Important game for them tonight.
Coming up later this week, Wednesday, you see all the big ones. Michigan, North Carolina, 9:30 tip on ESPN, and a pair of top 12 programs. Tell you what, North Carolina's got some intriguing pieces, and as they go through the season, they're going to get better, just like Kentucky and just like a lot of the other blue bloods around the nation.
And North Carolina has a number of veterans, but they're still young, playing the freshman point guard Kobe White, who is special. But one of the things for him, of course, is having to learn how to really play that point guard position at this level. But North Carolina, in my opinion, as you said, they're going to be much better in March than they are now.
Clyde Trapp off the mark. Here comes Nebraska in the midst of a 6-0 run.
And we saw Tim Miles come out of the timeout with the 1-3-1 zone. We were expecting to see him run that. I'm sure Brad Brownell was too, but it was a win for Nebraska on that first possession of showing the 1-3-1, just throwing Clemson off balance.
And Corey, that trapping pressure has 2-3 zone principles. Clemson's going to have to make some threes to handle it, and right on cue, that's what Trapp does.
And Clyde Trapp has really improved as a shooter in the offseason, and you see it just so you're on cue. They have to make threes to be able to pull Nebraska out of that. Nebraska right now only allowing 25% from 3 on the season. That's the emphasis of Tim Miles. He wants to make sure that opposing teams aren't comfortable shooting the ball from beyond the arc.
8 to shoot. Here's Palmer in traffic with the bounce, and nicely done.
You know, watching James Palmer, his game has evolved so much from when he went to Miami. And, of course, he was skilled at Miami, but he was a very young guy coming to college at 17 years old. But now you watch him, and his game has just slowed down so much for him, and he will be one of those guys that will play in the NBA from this team. And you see the way Clemson attacks the 1-3-1 zone. Clyde Trapp with a nice move and James Palmer did the job running Trapp off the line, but then Palmer on the other side, you see the mid-range game, the intelligence not to run someone over, pull up in the paint and get the easy 2.
Huskers running their motion offense. Baseline is Palmer, who's trapped quickly. Off the mark. Copeland, right place, right time, make that Roby on the offensive glass. Nebraska's done a nice job rebounding so far.
And that's one of the areas Tim Miles was concerned about. He didn't know how well his team could come in and rebound against what he felt like was a stronger Clemson group, but they've done a great job so far, especially crashing the offensive glass.
Nasty dribble penetration by Watson, who gets it back. And the spin move. Kenton, his first basket.
And great patience by Watson, delivering the basketball in the paint. And you see, we talked about the backcourts in the opening, but these experienced backcourts, these guys are not in the rush. The game has slowed down for them all.
Mitchell comes up short. A fresh 30. Clemson back to work. Tigers' lone loss this season against Creighton, the Cayman Islands Classic last week. Newman. And a fresh 30 once more. An open look for Shelton Mitchell, who connects.
Three opportunities on the offensive end for Clemson. That was the concern for Tim Miles. Maybe it wasn't whether they could go get offensive rebounds, it was whether they could clean up their defensive boards. Can't continue to give Clemson multiple opportunities when they come down. And Tim Miles keeps track of the possessions, and that's one he's definitely going to be concerned about when he gets a chance to talk to his team.
Watson with 5 to shoot. Got caught in no man's land. Finds a Kenton. 30 seconds for Nebraska once more. And don't forget, this 20th annual ACC Big Ten Challenge continues tomorrow. Number 9 Michigan State against Louisville. That's at 7:30 over on ESPN. And then the player and the team everyone's talking about, the Duke Blue Devils, 3rd in the country, squaring off against IU. Can I get a little love for Zion Williamson? The answer, of course, is yes.
Well, I only think a little love is possible. He's gotten so much love. And again, rightfully so. He's been spectacular this season for Duke, but as has R.J. Barrett and so many other of the Blue Devils.
We're talking about maybe 3 picks in the top 5 coming up next summer in the NBA draft. 2-point lead for the Tigers here at home. Clemson leading Nebraska by 2, under 12 to go in our first half. Corey Alexander, Roy Philpott. These stats paint the picture for the Huskers defensively. You look at defensive efficiency coming into this game with all of this in mind, number 1 in the country. So all the analytics for Tim Miles' club off the charts on that side of the floor.
And Nebraska has not allowed a team to shoot 50% against them in 32 straight games dating back to last year. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Tim Miles' defensive philosophy changed a couple years ago, where he basically said, we're going to run teams off the three-point line, not allow them to have easy threes, and make sure that we take them out of that and then make everything difficult in the paint. And it's worked for Nebraska, but right now Clemson doing very well in the paint, and 20 of the 28 points in this game have been scored in the paint thus far. So both teams taking advantage of that, running everyone off the three-point line.
Stop and pop for Reed, the leading scorer for Clemson. That's his first bucket. Tigers lead is 4. A Kenton open look, and it's all net for 25 in red.
And he's come in very aggressive off the bench in this game, already 5 points from a Kenton, so he's given Tim Miles a huge boost stepping into the game.
Kenton does have explosive scoring ability, had 18 in their opener against Mississippi Valley State. In traffic, and Reed will shoot a pair. It's interesting, Corey. You look at this game and all the players in it, and really the top 2 scorers for both sides come in as transfers to these programs. And we're seeing now in the offseason as many as 700 players transferring within teams. It really has become, according to a lot of people, an epidemic. But in a weird way, for programs like these two, it's helped them in how they recruit. Reed started his career at Robert Morris, Sheldon Mitchell at Vanderbilt. For Nebraska, as you mentioned, Palmer at Miami. Elijah Thomas came from Texas A&M. So on the Clemson side, you've got 5 players, 4 of which are hoping to play central roles this year from other programs, and 3 for the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, and you look at Nebraska, and we've actually got that switch. Palmer was at Miami and Copeland at Georgetown, but you're talking about a first-team All-Big Ten performer last year in James Palmer. And so I'm sure Jim Larranaga would love to have Palmer right now at Miami, where he started his career, but guys really develop a lot in that year where they're sitting out.
Sweet still inside in the bucket for Thomas Allen.
And Thomas Allen really is the wild card for this Nebraska team. Talking with Armand Gates, assistant coach with Tim Miles, he was basically saying this young man is so much better than what he's showing consistently. He has moments where he shows up and has big games, but they're going to need for him to do that consistently if they want to have the year they want to have. And Clyde Trapp is really going to have to continue to give Brad Brownell big minutes, because they're having to replace a guy like Gabe DeVoe. And right now, Clyde Trapp off to a great start in showing that he's capable of doing so.
Trapp averages just over 5 points. He already has 6 tonight. You mentioned DeVoe. I don't know if a lot of Clemson fans understand his importance to that team last year that reached the Sweet 16 as Tyson Hunter, or check that, Hunter Tyson, hit the deck, and we'll see what the call is. DeVoe's sharpshooting, a big deal for a team that wants to try to bust up those zone defenses.
And you see Allen just sneaking in great anticipation right there. Amir Sims already heading to the other end. Allen able to pick up the steal in the easy bucket, and that's something, of course, for Allen that can get him going. A very capable shooter, a scorer from beyond the three-point arc. But you see a layup go in early, that definitely builds on your confidence.
Clemson starts this game shooting 57%, working against man-to-man pressure and some 1-3-1 zone. Halfway through our first half.
Great skip pass.
And Tyson off the mark.
The one thing about Tyson, he's not shy. And neither is Roby. The pull-up three in transition, that's pretty impressive.
Roby, with his size, he's added a couple of inches since enrolling with the Cornhuskers.
But that's a shot that he has to make. You
Yeah.
remember Tim Miles talking to us about the fact that if the ball's not moving, no passes, he doesn't mind threes in transition, but when someone giving the basketball up, but to come down and pull up the way Roby did, that's one of those shots you have to make. And fortunately for the junior, he was able to knock it down. You don't see many guys playing the 5 position, bring the ball full court, and pull up for 3 with an opposing center guard him, but that's one of the weapons that Tim Miles has in his tool shed. Wait a minute. You get an instant replay, and you get a replay, you knock down the 3. Why are you coming out of the game? That's what I'm like, Coach, I'm hot right now. You got to keep me in.
That's Corey Alexander circa mid-90s. Thinking back to his playing days. What are we doing? Reed in traffic. Palmer the board. And Nebraska a chance to regain the lead. No-look dish inside and an offensive foul. A nice pass, but better defense by Elijah Thomas.
And give Elijah Thomas credit because he really found himself in a position where he could have given up an easy dunk, but Thomas does the right thing, turns, takes the charge, gets out in transition, and of course for Palmer, that's a tough play because, again, it's almost impossible to be able to stop on a dime in that position, but Thomas does a great job turning and getting his body square for the charge.
Mitchell inside the easy bucket, 23-20. ACC Big Ten Challenge kicking off with this game here tonight. Minnesota at Boston College when we're done here in Clemson. Amir Harris checking in for the Huskers. Palmer may have gotten away with a push-off, 8 to shoot. Harris the bounce pass. Thomas thought he got all ball. Instead, Isaac Copeland will shoot a pair.
And that's going to be the second on Thomas. We go back to the technical foul early in the game, and we knew that would be an issue. Eli Thomas has had issues over his Clemson career staying on the court, especially in the first half. He did get all basketball up top, but if you look at the bottom of that play, the hand is on the hip of Copeland. So I agree with that call. But more importantly, you send out the post presence. He got off to such a great start in this game, scored the first 4 points for Clemson until he got the double technical foul, but now he'll probably sit the remaining 8-10 of this first half.
Thomas so critical to Clemson's tournament hopes again this season. You mentioned it earlier, sprained both of his ankles really just a couple of weeks ago when you think about it. Also suffered from the flu. He played their opener, the temperature of over 102 degrees. Clemson back to work with a 1-point advantage. Reed, the floater, short. Palmer directing traffic. An open look for Watson from the baseline side of the backboard. David Scarra checking in, known for his defense. The runners off the mark.
Great decision there by Copeland not to fire the 3. You saw him look at it. He wanted to let it go. But that's where Tim Miles has talked to his team about, is just using some patience and trying to get a quality look every time down the floor.
Yeah, their last game, they struggled on possessions with 2 passes or less. Shooting just 19% inside. Watson and the flush by Copeland.
But look what you get because of the patience by Copeland. He ends up getting the opportunity to be on SportsCenter tonight. So instead of the 3 in the corner, he gets the putback slam and some momentum built for the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
8 points already on the books for Isaac Copeland. Nebraska back in front. And on the screen, Javen White picks up the personal.
Isaac Copeland turning down the 3 in the corner, which turns out to be a smart move because off of the drive by Watson, unable to finish, no problem for Copeland.
Back at Littlejohn Coliseum, you know about the strength of the Atlantic Coast Conference. 5 teams right now, Corey, in the top 25. Clemson was 16th last week at this time. Lost by 5 to Creighton. All of a sudden, they're out. Meanwhile, in the Big Ten is locked and loaded, as you would expect as well. 7 teams from the Big Ten currently in the AP top 25. Who do you like there?
Well, I really like Purdue. And the reason I like Purdue, Carson Edwards, and I watched them, of course, in Charleston, lost to Virginia Tech in the final. But when you have a guard as good as Carson Edwards, you can compete with anybody on any given night. And, of course, Matt Painter, one of the best guys doing it along the sidelines. I like Purdue a lot in the Big Ten this year.
3rd turnover for the Huskers as Hyman couldn't corral the pass. 24-23, a competitive start here in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Corey Alexander, Roy Philpott, great to have you with us. And Skara off the bounce comes up well short. Transition time for Nebraska. And the Huskers turn it over for the 4th time. Well, running one-hander, Amir Sims connects.
Not the conventional fast break, but it works. Amir Sims doing a great job, body control to be able to get that up on the glass after the turnover by Allen. But David Skara right now, I'm not sure if Amir Sims is the guy you want to throw the ball out to in the front of the break.
1 tie, 4 lead changes already. Under 6 to play in our first half. Top of the key. Rare miss for Copeland, but a fresh 30. And Watson makes him pay.
Offensive rebounding. The 3-point percentage off of offensive rebound, I've been asking for years for someone to track it. All the analytics in the game right now, still I can't get anybody to do it for me. What's going on?
Well, that's what happens if you bang the offensive boards hard and you're able to get a couple of fresh possessions, extra ones, I should say, you're going to have a chance.
Maybe I talk so bad about analytics that no one will do it for me.
But, I mean, I would tend to agree. You hit the 3 a lot of times. People tell you in transition off a long 3 miss on the other end. If you're working on the offensive boards, it just feels like it's more in rhythm. And the turnaround for Copeland is good. He's got 10.
I tell you right now, Isaac Copeland is playing at a high level. Talking to the Nebraska staff, they made it clear that he and Watson were the rocks of this team. Palmer makes them special, but Copeland is putting on a show here this evening. Nebraska's defense is the reason why they really made the jump under 10 miles, but you have to really appreciate what they've done offensively here tonight. Glenn Watson Jr. knocking down the 3 off of the offensive rebound, and then Isaac Copeland on the block, showing you why he was a top 15 prospect out of ESPN coming out of high school. The turnaround jumper, the soft touch, and Copeland already in double figures in the first half.
He's got those 10 points, couple of rebounds. He has been active on both ends, Corey.
He really has. And again, you know, talking to the coaching staff in Nebraska, they'll let you know that Isaac Copeland is a special player and really a matchup problem at the 4 position. You see his ability to shoot the 3 and to be able to put the ball on the floor, but defensively he can chase shooters as well. So that's where he becomes special. You see him right now guarding Hunter Tyson, really was a 2 guard in this game.
Mitchell lost the handle, turns it over. And Clemson, a nice job to recover defensively.
And that's one where Nebraska, you really should get a layup. So we talked about Copeland and all his versatility. Maybe not quite point guard yet, working on it, but you see, give him an opportunity to hand the ball at the front of the play and make plays for his teammates as well.
5 on the shot clock. Little shake and bake from Palmer. Nebraska, with its largest lead, cannot increase that advantage.
And that was a miscue by Nebraska on the offensive end right there. They actually had Copeland with Clyde Trapp guarding him on the block, but he did not get the basketball. Those are the possessions you go back and look at, and as a veteran team, you have to recognize when you have a mismatch as such.
Open look, baseline, too strong for Sims. Watson controls. Allen thought about it. Nine to shoot. A mismatch, and Copeland ran right through Marquise Reed. Huskers with their largest lead. It's 29-25.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by the U.S. Army. Find out at goarmy.com/warriors and McDonald's.
Coach, I believe it absolutely is. And you talk about the Indiana-Duke matchup. Well, Clemson and Nebraska aren't going to be able to go out and get the recruits that Duke gets. So, therefore, you have to be able to have older players to go out and compete against the top freshmen in the country each and every year. So, Coach, I definitely agree on the fact that I think this is the way that both these programs have to build, and they do it with the transfers as well.
And adding to that, let's think about what these two athletic departments are known for. Little stop and pop for Clyde Trapp to make it a one-possession game. Nebraska, a football program, a football school. Same thing at Clemson. Tigers undefeated under Dabo Swinney, trying to go back to the college football playoff. So that perception, I think, a lot of times in recruiting is hard to overcome. How can you do it? Bring in the transfer players, and both of these teams, I think, have done a nice job, and they found a niche in recruiting circles on the secondary market, if you will.
And I'll tell you, transfers is one area, but also development. And we're watching Clyde Trapp develop in front of our eyes. Trapp has played extremely well in this game. A nice step back at the top of the key. Already, I believe, with 7 points in this one, and really earning more and more minutes right in front of us for Brad Brownell.
8 points tonight. Nifty move by Skara, who connects. So Clemson responding to tie this game at 29 apiece, less than 2 to play, and Tim Miles is going to call a timeout.
And that's the mark of a veteran team. Come out of a timeout, get your message from your coach, and be able to relay it on the floor, just as Clemson did coming out of the timeout.
Don't forget, coming up Wednesday, the 20th annual ACC Big Ten Challenge rolls right along. 4th-ranked Virginia, number 24 Maryland, 7:30 over on ESPN. Then it's number 11 North Carolina, 7th-ranked Michigan at 9:30 on ESPN from the Chrysler Center in Ann Arbor. It's going to be another great night of hoops on ESPN and also the ESPN app. Pride at stake in these early tournaments and also for this ACC Big Ten Challenge. And we got a handful of unbeaten programs in both conferences still approaching December, as you see. How about Pittsburgh under a first-year head coach getting the job done?
Jeff Capel doing a great job, but he got a tough task at hand, having to go to Iowa to play Tyler Cook and the Hawkeyes out there. But I'm looking forward to the Virginia-Maryland renewed rivalry.
I was going to say, that's a great ACC game, isn't it?
It used to be, but they've actually squared off in the ACC Big Ten a number of times and, been very good games.
Foul against Trapp. Free throws coming up for Nebraska.
What we've seen with Eli Thomas in foul trouble, Brad Brownell gone smaller, and Trapp now playing 3 position, moving Skara to the 4. But Clyde Trapp giving them so much on the offensive end in this game, he's earning more and more minutes. And I'm thinking that this is a lineup that we will see Brad Brownell continue to play throughout the season. Of course, you can play 3 guards in college basketball. It's easy to do. If they're doing it in the NBA, it's oftentimes 4 guards. But with Trapp's size, he can guard multiple players. So if he can shoot the ball this way, he will definitely become a very valuable member of this Clemson Tiger team.
Huskers by 2. Trapp off the screen. Will feed Sims down low, and a nice move in the paint.
And that's an area where Amir Sims, when he's playing the 4 position, he's often on the perimeter much more and showing off his, because he really can shoot the basketball. But that's, in my opinion, where Amir Sims is best. I believe he's a extremely difficult guard in the post. Hard to stop him when he gets his back to the basket, down on the block.
Allen Jr. off the mark. Rebound for Trapp, and Clemson will slow it up. Well, this game, a very similar pattern tonight compared to what we saw 2 years ago between these same 2 teams. Corey, it was 60-58. Both coaches telling us earlier they expected a very similar game this evening. That's what we've gotten.
Yeah, they did. And Tim Miles actually was telling us about how that game came down to one possession. But for this one possession, Amir Sims, with his back to the basket, the ability to score over top of Copeland, who was a good defender on the block. So that just shows you Amir Sims has some skill in that block. And in my opinion, he'll be a better player if he mixes it up, doesn't rely as much on the perimeter shooting.
Got a 5-second differential between game and shot clock. Huskers more than 4.5 minutes since their last field goal. 5 to shoot. Watson's got to hurry. Comes up short. Here comes Marquise Reed. Oh, had his pocket pick back to Mitchell. And that'll do it. An entertaining first half in the books. And we end right where we started, tied. Nebraska 31, Clemson 31. As we send you now to the studio, Chris Cotter, Seth Greenberg, Jay Will. The Trade Halftime Report, guys. We're watching the ACC Big Ten Challenge presented by Continental. The start of our second half, we are tied at 31 between Nebraska and Clemson. Both teams coming in at 5-1. Corey Alexander, Roy Philpott. Fun start to this one. We thought it would be competitive. That's exactly what it's been.
It was, and we thought it would be the backcourts that were getting it done. We of course, highlighted the two backcourts for both these teams that played so well all season long. But for Nebraska, it wasn't a backcourt player. It was one of their frontcourt guys. Isaac Copeland got them off to a great start with his energy and effort on the offensive glass, the putback, and then, of course, when he gets the opportunity to operate on the block, the beautiful, a little bit of a dream shake, turn around the fadeaway, nice, and then a highlight reel putback off of the Glenn Watson miss. Copeland's there to clean up the mess. And for the Clemson, it was their backcourt, but not one of the guys that we thought it would be. It was Clyde Trapp coming off the bench and 2 for 2 from 3, a total 3 for 4 from the field, with 8 points for Trapp, giving them the production that they're going to need to try to replace Gabe DeVoe from a year ago. And we saw the backcourts. You talked about James Palmer, 6 points, 6 rebounds, a good first half for him, as well as Glenn Watson. And then Marquise Reed struggled a bit from the field. Shelton Mitchell got off to a great start. But when you look at Palmer, when you think about Nebraska, in 3 different halves this season, Palmer has scored 15 or more points. Look for him to have a big second half here for the Cornhuskers.
2 defensive teams, 2 teams blessed with senior talent that can go off at any moment. Start of our second half, Nebraska basketball. 5 to shoot. An outstanding defense on the opening possession for the Tigers.
And nothing makes coaches happier than seeing their team come out of the halftime after making adjustments and get off to a great defensive stand, such as Brad Brownell's team did there, and really showing somewhat of a zone look, but then eventually switching to man-to-man mid-possession.
Brad Brownell taking over for Oliver Purnell. It's his 9th season. He took the Tigers to the tournament his first campaign, and also last year, a Sweet 16 team really challenged Kansas with a chance to get to the Elite 8. Came up just short. Nice pass down low for Thomas. And our second half starts off the same way the first began.
Yeah, it does. Eli Thomas getting involved early, and we saw he and Roby have a little bit of a mix-up in the first half. Both those guys eventually had to go to the bench with their second foul, so spent the majority of the second part of the first half on the bench. And we'll see if either one of those guys will really have much of an influence and input as to the way this game ends.
High ball screen for Watson. Skip pass to Allen. 6 on the shot clock. And the alley-oop. Copeland with 12. He was ready and waiting.
And give Allen a lot of credit for recognizing the spacing and seeing where his teammate was. And instead of forcing a tough shot, giving it up and getting it much easier too. Well, easier for Isaac Copeland. Maybe not as easy for you or I.
I was going to say.
I mean, I know you used to do that back in your day.
Back on the B team. 7 on the shot clock. Reed only 1 bucket so far tonight. And the rebound by Roby. That was more of a 3-point specialist, if you don't mind me saying so.
Okay, I can appreciate that.
Copeland, dangerous toss. Shot clock does not reset. Roby inside. And Nebraska, a couple of point-blank opportunities, finally connecting as Roby. He's got 5.
And I can tell you right now, Brad Brownell as well as Eli Thomas both upset with David Scarr for not getting on the floor for that basketball. It cost their team 2 points. And those are the type of hustle plays that you can't allow your team to not get.
Roby just picked up his third, a nickel timer against Mitchell.
And you see Watson getting into the lane. Allen does a great job attacking, but then recognizing Copeland on the backside. And Copeland, of course, with the athletic ability to be able to go vertically and just go finish that without needing much space.
Mitchell has one more coming and a chance to tie us up. Now, Roby's got to be smarter than that. A little touch foul on the elbow of Shelton Mitchell. Transfer from Vanderbilt. Second leading scorer this season for 4 in white.
And really has just gone about his game very businesslike, but now in double figures for Shelton Mitchell. And you and I both looked at the halftime stats. We had no idea that he had that many points, but he's played a very good floor game thus far.
Roby, an athletic finish at the rack. Interesting, Roby remains on the floor with those 3 fouls, Corey.
Yeah, give Tim Miles a lot of credit for trusting Roby, now a junior, and making sure that he's mature enough to be able to go out and play with 3 fouls. But I tell you what, that was a spectacular move, and you show his ability off the dribble. One of the reasons why he's on a number of NBA draft boards.
Thomas inside, outstanding position.
But the problem there, Roby really can't give him much resistance, and Brad Brownell will continue to go to Eli Thomas on the block because there's not much that Roby can do because he can't risk getting that 4th foul.
Thomas with 8. We're tied at 37. A great way to start the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Roby, the step back triple.
And right now you're seeing Thomas trying to carve out a niche and find a way to get the basketball in now. So this is the interesting part, is we'll see where the foul is on that possession. I believe they're going to get to Thomas. But we had opportunity to see Isaiah Roby, and you see this drive, and that really could have been ugly for Scarr.
I thought it was going to be for about 2.5 seconds there.
From our angle, you saw how high above the rim he was, and all he really had to do was decide to turn it over, and it would have gotten very ugly for David Scarr on that possession. But Eli Thomas now picking up his 3rd foul on the rebound, and really just kind of found himself in the way. But again, we talked about in the first half, Roby and Thomas, both these guys, how important they are to their respective teams, and now both with 3 fouls in this game.
Nebraska back to work. Both teams at 5-1 coming into this game tonight. Copeland, high off the glass, and down it goes.
I'm not sure if Clemson has anyone that can guard Isaac Copeland. When you see it, he's getting everything that he wants. If he doesn't get the ball, he's getting it off the offensive glass. And when he has it in his hands, he's been able to score at will. You and I both thought it was going to be a highlight, but Copeland continues to provide positive play for the Cornhuskers.
Well, a great night in Clemson, South Carolina to kickstart the ACC Big Ten Challenge. 2 competitive clubs with their eyes on the big dance. Nebraska at 5-1, Clemson at 5-1. Back and forth we go. 6 ties, 7 lead changes so far. And how will this one conclude inside Littlejohn Coliseum? Corey Alexander, Roy Philpott. Huskers basketball in a 2-point game.
You know, and Brad Brownell making the switch, going to Clyde Trapp, and playing a lineup that they had a lot of success with the 3 guards in the first half. We'll see if Trapp is able to continue his spectacular play.
Palmer, open look from the wing.
Now that was a defensive breakdown. Tim Miles coming over talking to us. This is what he was talking about in shoot-around earlier. But a defensive breakdown by Trapp right there, helping on Copeland and leaving Palmer wide open. And those are the type of plays defensively that you can't have, especially when you're following the scouting report.
White too strong off the glass. Nebraska now with its largest advantage of the night. And the Huskers start this second half, 5 for their first 6 from the field.
And for Nebraska, number 15, Isaiah Roby.
Copeland checking out. Roby's in there with those 3 fouls. Eli Thomas on the Clemson bench with 3 personals as well. And this is the player for the Tigers that has to find his rhythm. 27 points the last time out, just 4 tonight. And on cue, the kind bounce.
And that's just a tough shot for Marquise Reed. Very good defense there by James Palmer. And Palmer using his length and wingspan to affect that. But Marquise Reed just knows how to score, makes a tough bucket.
Started his career at Robert Morris. Palmer, the elbow jumper, too strong. He was the NEC Freshman of the Year before transferring to Clemson. And Reed, silky smooth from the mid-range.
And you see it doesn't take much to get him started. 2 back-to-back buckets, but did it get a friendly home court roll earlier, just opening things up for Marquise Reed. And just like that, his confidence picks up immediately.
Watson, top of the key.
Same for Watson, coming off of a 20-point effort in their last time out. And Brad Brownell talked about Watson. He scared him with his speed and with his ability to score the basketball of how aggressive he would be in this game.
Mir Sims off the mark. They'll get it back in a fresh 30 seconds. It'll stay with the Tigers. Well, you can feel the sense of urgency in this contest picking up.
And we see Glenn Watson taking advantage of the ISO up top, but then Marquise Reed, he always feels like it's an ISO. He's got an advantage. He's able to shoot over the much smaller Watson, showing off that soft touch.
But I mean, for a player like yourself back in the day in the ACC, if you were having an off night, you get a bounce like that, all of a sudden you feel like you're in rhythm. As White went for the SportsCenter top 10, he comes up short, but he'll get a couple of free throws.
So are you insinuating that there was a time where I thought I was not in rhythm?
There was that one game, your sophomore season, just that one time.
Not that year. Not that year. I was in rhythm all that year. Maybe go back to my freshman year.
Oh, I love it. Javen White at the stripe. Transfer from Oral Roberts.
And Javen White has huge shoes to fill. Mark Denal, who played at Michigan for the majority of his career, but came in as a grad transfer, the first ever grad transfer to Clemson, was significant for Clemson a year ago. We talked about their run to the Sweet 16 because when Eli Thomas got in foul trouble, they didn't take a bit with Denal coming on the floor. And Denal was able to shoot the 3 and stretch the 4. So basically, he put a lot of pressure on White coming in and trying to fill those shoes this year as that grad transfer big man.
Crowd back in it at Littlejohn. Seven to shoot. Watson in traffic. Here comes Mitchell. There goes Reed. Palmer the flush.
You remember earlier when I told you James Palmer makes Nebraska special?
That was nasty.
And he is a heck of a player. You see just some of what he can do and his ability to handle the ball at 6'6". And reason why he was a first-team All-Big Ten member a year ago.
Reed has found his rhythm, now in double figures with 10. It's a 2-point lead for Nebraska.
Speaking of All-Conference, Marquise Reed was a second-team All-ACC member a year ago, looking to be a first-teamer this season.
Deep triple for Palmer, rolls it in. Palmer with 14. He's in the zone tonight on the road in the heart of the ACC.
Scored 8 points already in 8 minutes here in the second half. I mentioned earlier he has 3 halves alone this season where he scored 15 or more points. James Palmer does not take much for him to get hot.
Reed and Palmer have been trading buckets the last 2 minutes. Mitchell wants a piece of the action. Doesn't get it. And a foul on the floor.
James Palmer coming up with the rebound, the ability to handle the ball, and, of course, the silky smooth move for the finish at the rim. And Nebraska finds itself with a 5-point lead.
Chris, thank you very much. Don't forget our 30 for 30 documentary, The Last Days of Night, which premiered in April on ESPN Plus, will make its television debut Thursday on ESPN at 7:30. Behind the scenes of CNN's investigation into why high school All-Americans were leaving Coach Knight's basketball program at Indiana, and in the fallout after the story broke in 2000. And, of course, also available on the ESPN app. With Corey Alexander, Roy Philpott. Starting the ACC Big Ten Challenge tonight, you see the other key matchups headed your way in the next 48 hours. Indiana and Duke. You know, a lot of people surprised what Gonzaga did against the Blue Devils. That could be a matchup we see later on in March in the NCAA tournament. But Duke, in my opinion, is only going to get better with those talented freshmen.
Yeah, and Gonzaga defensively is always spectacular, so no surprise for me there, especially with Duke. You know, again, as good as the freshmen are, they're inexperienced in college basketball. Mark Few's team, normally an older team, and he's had those guys in the system for a while, and you can't forget the fact that they played in the national championship 2 years ago. So this is an experienced group, and they've got some players out in Spokane, Washington, and that's one of the teams. I picked them for the Final Four earlier this year. I think that Mark Few's team has a chance to win a national championship this year.
We've said that so many different seasons, and they have come so close as Mitchell connects on the free throw. One more coming. At some point, they're going to break through. It just feels like that.
Well, they've now made it to a Final Four.
Right.
So that was the first hurdle. So now it's about, can they win a national championship? Now, I picked them for a Final Four. However, I still think Kansas wins the national championship this year. I think Bill Self group is loaded. And they're loaded at every position, similar to the way Digger and Phelps used to do it back in the 70s, the Noah's Ark team, where they had 2 of everything.
Well, Kansas, an impressive win against Tennessee last week. Palmer stop and pop. And the offensive glass, the rejection. Thomas got in there. And here comes Clemson Reed.
And again, Marquise Reed has the green light to be able to take that shot, but I'm not sure if that was the best time to take that one.
McKinnon has been active off the bench in the second half. A couple of buckets in the first half as well. And Brad Brownell, his team trailing by 4.
And you see him read his lips, block out 25. That was a grown man rebound right there by Kenton. Unable to finish it. Eli Thomas was able to block the shot, but Kenton went way above the square to get that one.
You can tell Thomas trying to get back into playing shape at 100%. A couple of sprained ankles, the flu that we mentioned. Back to work and a pass. Had too much zest on it. 8 to shoot.
And you see, especially with Roby on the bench, Tim Miles going to pick his spots to be able to double team Thomas when he catches the ball on the block. Great defensive rotation on that possession right there. Clemson with only 8 on the shot clock, trying to come up with a quality look right here and not waste a possession.
I should mention Roby going out for that last break, picked up his 4th personal. 3-pointer by Sims is well short. Nebraska an opportunity here to try to seize control on the road.
James Palmer got a little extra bounce to his step right now. He's going to be looking to be very aggressive here for the last 10 minutes of this game.
You can see that easily from our perspective, courtside. Clyde Trapp will check back in. Shelton Mitchell out for the Tigers. Palmer's been in the zone, averaging 17 per contest coming into this game tonight. Roby on the bench right now with those 4 fouls. Clemson started the season ranked inside the top 25, 16th last week. Lost to Creighton by 5 as Palmer turns it over, and he didn't like that call from Roger Ayers.
Give David Scarr credit, especially when you know a guy has it going, to sit there and continue to stay disciplined in the scouting report and how you're going to go about guarding. And Scarr doing a great job right there, beating Palmer to the baseline, forcing him to pick up his dribble.
Thomas draws the contact. Don't forget about SportsCenter after Monday Night Football over on ESPN with SVP highlights from the Titans and Texans. Plus, Kyler Murray joins Scott Van Pelt. And you don't want to miss the worst beats of the weekend at SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt after the game on ESPN and the ESPN app. And speaking of the Texans, former Clemson quarterback Deshaun Watson has Houston off and running, a 7-game winning streak, and will try to seize control in their division against rival Tennessee.
Huge Deshaun Watson fan. Honestly, huge Clemson football fan. But speaking of football, does Kyler Murray have any chance at all of winning the Heisman?
I don't think so, because it's going to Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback at Alabama. Murray's going to get the invitation.
So how many other invitations go out?
Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa. I imagine maybe Will Grier, maybe someone else. We're back to a one-possession game here, and this crowd comes to life once again in Littlejohn Coliseum.
And John Newman back into the game for Clemson. Brad Brownell talked about his defensive presence, and right now Clemson needs a stop.
And a foul called outside the three-point arc on Marquise Reed.
Foul is called on Marquise Reed. That's his second.
So his second and the second team foul for Clemson in this second half.
And right now a very strong defensive group in the game for Clemson with Scar, Trapp, Newman, Reed, and Thomas. Probably their 5 best defenders at their respective positions right now. And that's how important this possession is, but give Nebraska credit for being able to play against that unit and come up with a huge bucket to extend the lead to 4.
Tanner Borkhardt, his first bucket, the senior. Newman, short, Copeland the board. He's skied for that one. Don't forget Minnesota, Boston College from Chestnut Hill as soon as we're done here in Tiger Town. This is the first game of the ACC Big Ten Challenge, one that Copeland has played extremely well in for Nebraska. And a skip pass out of bounds, 4 to shoot. Yeah, the Heisman's going to Tua Tagovailoa. Make no mistake about it.
I know that. I just wanted to see if anybody had a chance. You do a lot of football, so you could let me know who else had an opportunity to get invited.
Inside, Watson shot did not hit the rim. And they're going to call a foul against the Tigers. Newman over the back.
Well, Watson was able to get away with a little bit of a chicken wing on that one to get some space to get to the rim. You see he catches the post up. That left arm hooks Marquise Reed. Eli Thomas stays out of the way, but John Newman gets in there before that shot clock buzzer goes off and picks up the foul.
Borkhardt off the bench. Had a bucket a minute ago. Now 3 of 6 from the line this year. As Shelton Mitchell checks back in. Newman is out.
And a sub for Brad Brownell trying to get a good offensive possession before the media timeout. Getting Mitchell back in the game and taking out the freshman. But John Newman in primarily for defensive purposes right now. Able to do his job.
Borkhardt 1 of 2 at the line. Was offered to play football by Colorado State and Wyoming. Elected instead to play hoops at Nebraska. That's 20 in red in the paint.
Now, when you talk that, you got to tell me what position was he playing at that side?
He was an offensive tackle, and Reed gets offensive high off the glass.
Nice move and a great pass by Eli Thomas right there. That's one of the advantages Brad Brownell has with Eli is to be able to put him at the top of the key. We've seen him make a number of nice passes to his teammates cutting to the basket in this game.
Crowd trying to will this Clemson defense on. Watson probing. Nice pump fake, can't connect, and a foul inside against Clemson. 1 possession game, under 8 to play in Littlejohn. In Clemson, the ACC Big Ten Challenge, a 3-point lead for Nebraska, and what a second half, Corey, for James Palmer.
Yeah, quiet first half for Palmer, but his second half has been loud. He's been able to attack the paint, knock down the 3, and then, of course, get out in transition and show off his ball handling ability. And beautiful move here for the finish And this is one of the reasons why I think James Palmer will be playing in the NBA. But right now, his concentration is on trying to get Nebraska ACC Big Ten win.
Palmer, first team All-Big Ten a year ago. Under 8 to play. Huskers basketball. Tapped away to Eli Thomas. Clyde Trapp has been quiet after 8 points in the first 20 minutes. Seven on the shot clock. Thomas back to work. The spin. Gets it to go.
You know, and Nebraska has mixed up their coverage as to whether or not they're going to double team Eli Thomas when he gets it. He's been very effective when he's caught the ball on the block. That time choosing not to double, and he made them pay.
Baseline. Palmer banks it in. He ran out of real estate, still found a way to score.
Yeah, and he's very crafty around the basket. Honestly, Nebraska has two guys with Copeland and Palmer that Clemson really can't guard. They don't have an answer for them. The question is, will those guys stay within the system and try to find their looks on the offensive end of the floor?
Reed thought about it, draws the double team, and a foul called against Palmer. That'll be his second.
Roy, great offense beats good defense anytime. This is good defense by Clemson, but great offense by James Palmer. Splitting defenders in the air, and then the concentration to be able to get it up on the glass for two more. Now 10 second half points for James Palmer. We talked about his ability to turn it on in spurts, and we're seeing it right in front of us here tonight.
Now Clemson's made a living in this second half at the charity stripe. Already 7 of 8 from the line as Reed turns it over. Now in the bonus the rest of the way. And Corey, Nebraska's held this slight advantage for most of this second half. A couple of times it has felt like Clemson's going to regain the lead. It has not happened. Roby checks back in with 4 personals inside. Palmer back to work, rolls it in.
And great play design by Tim Miles right there. And you saw the patience, and that's what we talked about. Instead of trying to go out and do it on your own, allow your teammates to be part of it. Great execution. Tim Miles knew how aggressively Clemson will be guarding James Palmer, which opens up the back door, and Palmer makes number, directing traffic with his teammates, allowing them to know exactly where it is he needs for them to be. Tim Miles calls the play. They set up the back door here, recognizing that Clemson will be extremely aggressive on guarding Palmer. He's able to get back door for the easy bucket.
57-52. Back in Clemson, South Carolina. Huskers with the advantage here in game 1 of the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Out of the timeout. Thomas turns it over. 3-on-1. The dump off to Copeland. Largest lead of the basketball game for the Huskers. Isaac Copeland with 16.
And that was an extremely unselfish play by the big three of Nebraska. Getting out in transition, and Sims is able to respond with a big bucket for the Tigers.
Here comes the crowd. Open look, baseline. And a big miss by Watson. And Mitchell reset. Behind the back, step back. Roby controls.
And that's a ball that has to go inside Eli Thomas. When you can see the whole front of his jersey and you see on his face, he's a little frustrated that he did not get the basketball. But when you see your post player who's had as much success as Thomas has in this game, you can see the whole front of his jersey. That ball has to go inside.
Palmer. Copeland. Rejected by Thomas. Huskers get it back. And a shot clock violation.
Unselfish play by Nebraska. James Palmer, instead of trying to keep it himself, scores it. And then, of course, Watson with the drop back for Copeland. The big three of Nebraska operating perfectly on the fast break.
Less than 4 to play. Thomas versus Roby. Lost the handle. Another turnover. 10 for the Tigers tonight. Six to shoot. Watson with a bounce.
And that was unbelievable patience by Nebraska. Watson had the mismatch much earlier in the shot clock, yet they waited and took their time to be able to take advantage of it.
Quick response by Eli Thomas on the nice feed from Skara.
And that's the reason why Thomas has to get the ball, because Roby has 4 fouls. There's not much he can do defensively to guard them. So when Thomas gets the ball at a great angle, he's going to be able to score.
Tigers looking for a defensive stop right here and right now. Watson. Copeland on the offensive glass. Well, how active has Isaac Copeland been tonight around the rim, on the boards? Part of the big three for Nebraska.
You see Clemson in a zone look. They gave up a wide open three the last possession they did this.
Quick trigger from Allen.
And that one wasn't as open. However, the defender had his hands down, did not even contest the three.
And Brad Brownell has seen enough. He'll call a timeout. The Tigers trail by 8 here at home.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by Continental Tire. For what you do.
Chris, thank you very much. Three-pointer off the mark by Sims. Reed with a big shot from the wing. 64-59.
Offensive rebounding, three-point percentage so much higher on the second opportunity. And Clemson had not made a three-pointer in the second half until that bucket. Nebraska doing a great job running them off the line. I'm sure Tim Miles very disappointed to see the offensive rebound and give them a good look for three.
Less than 2 to play. The spin by Palmer. Too strong. Mitchell clears. Fast break opportunity. Mitchell directing traffic. Pinned at the rack. Nebraska controls, and what an exchange that was. Palmer. 20 points for James Palmer.
You know, one of the things we haven't talked about in this game is Nebraska's ability to block shots, averaging 6.5 blocks per game. But some blocks mean more than others. And this one meant a lot. Isaac Copeland beating that off the glass, and it turns into an easy highlight level slam for James Palmer.
Palmer with 20. Copeland with 16, and that all-important rejection seconds ago.
You know, and this game means a lot to Copeland. Isaiah Copeland from Raleigh, North Carolina, of course, so grew up in ACC country. I'm sure a lot of friends and family here to watch him play, and he has definitely played extremely well in front of them tonight as Eli Thomas sneaks in on the missed free throw box out and gets an easy one.
66-62. Here comes the full court pressure, and don't go anywhere just yet. A turnover. Mitchell ahead to Skara with the flush. One possession game. Roby. And here we go. 10 to shoot. Three on the shot clock for Palmer. Desperation heave. In and out. Shot clock is off, and the Tigers with a chance to tie or gain the lead. What do you draw up here if you're Brad Brownell?
Well, right now he's going to let him play it out, but I want the ball in the hands of Reed, allow my senior to take over.
Traveling. Brad Brownell can't believe it.
And Brad Brownell with a veteran group allowing his players to go make a play and not calling the timeout, allowing Tim Miles to set the defense. But Jamie Luckey right on top of that, and that's the right call. That was a travel.
Well, coming up Tuesday, the annual ACC Big Ten Challenge continues. Top 10 Michigan State Spartans against Louisville. That's at 7:30 on ESPN. And then the blockbuster is back. The Sonic blockbuster, number 3, Duke and Indiana at 9:30. Also on ESPN. And I agree with you. Reed did travel, and now Clemson with some work to do. Less than 11 seconds remaining.
You see Reed as he comes off the spin move. He picks up the basketball here, but then continues to move both feet. That is a travel, but right now Brad Brownell's team was able to have success with the full court pressure. But with only 9.4 seconds, they've got to take their chances at one trap. And if they aren't able to come up with a steal when the ball comes out of that trap, they've got to foul and put Nebraska at the line, hoping they'll miss at least one of the free throws.
Tigers with only 14 fouls and only 9.5 seconds to work with, so they got to foul in a hurry a couple of times. And a foul against Marquise Reed.
Oh. Well, you know what? Honestly, not flagrant. That's a good foul. Because as you mentioned, Clemson only with 4 fouls has to get 2 more just to be able to get into the bonus. So if you can do that without it looking intentional, that's a great play by Marquise Reed.
And Tim Miles will talk things over. And don't forget, coming up as soon as we are done here, we'll send you up to Chestnut Hill. The ACC Big Ten Challenge rolls along. Kai Bowman and BC against the Golden Gophers. That's going to be a lot of fun.
I believe that BC has an opportunity to be an NCAA tournament team this season, but they need wins like Minnesota coming into their building to be able to make that happen. I'm sure Richard Pitino is not thinking anything about BC getting into the tournament. He's more concerned about his own Golden Gophers. So I believe we've got a big matchup tonight.
6 more games tomorrow, highlighted by the Sonic blockbuster. Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett and company for the Blue Devils against Indiana.
Now, if I'm Clemson, I try to do the exact same thing again. You want to be able to foul without it looking intentional, without it looking planned. But if you can foul with no time coming off the clock and find a way to be able to put Nebraska in the bonus without losing time, that's fine. Then you take your chances. Once you know you're in the bonus, you take your chances on getting the steal on your end of the court.
Huskers with 1 timeout remaining. And Corey, you nailed it. Again, another foul. This one on David Skara.
It's perfect. It's perfect strategy by Brad Brownell. Now it's 6 fouls. They can take that trap, and if they don't get the steal, foul immediately and put Nebraska on the free throw line.
We're going to add a new major here in Clemson. Drama. Finding a way to act their way for these fouls. Almost 3 seconds evaporate off the clock.
Now, Clemson did that perfectly other than getting a good trap. They were unable to get a solid trap on Watson right there. Give Tim Miles a lot of credit for drawing up the right press breaker. But if they could have gotten a trap right there and see if they get a turnover with coming out. But even still, the pressure is on Watson to be able to make, especially this first free throw.
4 of 5 on the season, make it 5 of 6, and that was clutch.
But still, with an opportunity right here, if he misses a 1-possession game, to be able to tie this up.
two-possession game, 68-64. Tigers have to hurry. Mitchell. The stick back, 1 second remaining, and Brad Brownell will call his final timeout. 68-66. And now at this point, you either need a steal and a bucket, or you have to foul right away and hope for the best.
Well, you basically have to get the basketball off of the inbounds play and be able to score it. That's really the only opportunity that you have.
What a night it has been on the road. Isaac Copeland, 16 points, 6 rebounds, and he really got the party started the right way on the road here in Clemson.
And we talk about grew up here in ACC country in Raleigh, North Carolina, and so I'm sure he was excited about the opportunity to come back and play in this ACC Big Ten Challenge. Has played extremely well. And James Palmer, who played 2 years for Miami on this ACC Big Ten side, now on the other side in the Big Ten, and has really had a tremendous performance here this evening at Littlejohn Coliseum.
And the two have combined for 36 points, not to mention Watson Jr. adding 12 more. So the big three showing up in a big way, and this is a very important game for both sides, but for Nebraska, a team that was just snubbed by the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee last year. These were the kinds of wins that were missing from that resume.
And they lost to Texas Tech earlier in the non-conference season this year, which will turn out to be not a bad loss because Texas Tech now ranked in a very good team. But this one here, coming on the road, the opportunity to get a win here at Clemson definitely boosts their resume come March.
The inbound to Watson, and that'll do it. Tim Miles, a huge win on the road, and round one in the ACC Big Ten Challenge goes to the Big Ten's Nebraska Cornhuskers.
And give Nebraska credit for coming in, and we talked about how they kept Clemson kind of at arm's length the majority of the second half as the Big Ten takes a 1-0 lead over the ACC in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. But the big three for Nebraska, huge here on the road tonight.
So the second loss of this young season for Brad Brownell's team. And now 2 in a row, which is something they didn't do a lot of a year ago. Still searching for answers without Gabe DeVoe and Dante Grantham. And they'll have some time to work it out.
They really well. Brad Brownell, a great coach. He'll figure it out. But this is going to be a tough road ahead for Clemson. The schedule definitely doesn't get any easier.
Nebraska improves to 6-1 overall, knocking on the door of the top 25. Clemson falls to 5-2. Round one of the ACC Big Ten Challenge goes to the Big Ten. Final score tonight, 68-66. Nebraska the winner, as we send you back to the studio with Chris Cotter